This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, animal lovers. Look at this. We're here on quarantine. We have a lovely impala ram just enjoying some of the vegetation. It's a bit crisp this morning. There's a beautiful sky. Look at that. Isn't it wonderful? I love the mornings. It's so full of potential, and potential exactly for me and for Tristan and everyone else who's out at the moment. We're very excited, and I know that you guys are too. So we're going to get going to the south, and I want you to get ready because you're going to jump on board now for your live safari through the African bush. Isn't it stunning? I am so excited. I'm always excited in the morning, everyone. So welcome aboard. I'm happy to have you for this live safari. And we're going to have a lot of lens wiping today because there's a lot of condensation. It's a bit cool this morning. Hi, everyone. It's me, Trishala. I've got Gert on camera with me. And I say it's cool because it's a cool day. Like, you know, so cool, but also it's 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're out here on quarantine. It's beautiful, but we're going to get going. Not because quarantine is boring, but because we want to get down to the south and then start to move east. I want to go check out Chitwa again. Well, this is your live safari, everyone, so do use that hashtag WildEarth or @FC on the YouTube chat stream. You can talk to us, give us your questions and your comments. You can also go to our website. You can register there, use our questions and comments box. And if you're under 18, you can use kids' questions at wildearth.tv, and we'll chat about all sorts of things and try to answer as many questions as possible. It's such a beautiful smell. I love this time of year because it's just starting to dip down from that really hot time of the year and our wet season. So there's still moisture all around, but it's getting slightly drier and the smell changes. I like it. I like it very much. So I would love this morning to find a leopard and some elephants. That would be great. But we might actually, on our way down, swing past the den because it was active yesterday and the day before, so maybe we'll get lucky. So much potential, everyone, so much potential. But now I'm going to send you over to have a look at the weather at our other locations too.
Looks like it's going to be interesting weather today. In fact, I even heard that we might get some rain, which is crazy. Before we get into all of that kind of thing, my name is Tristan on camera. I've got Morgan this morning. And, well, we are on the western side where I had the tracks for what we think is Tingana. Maybe it was Mulawati, I don't know. It's difficult to say. It was a male leopard that walked here. And the last track that we had is coming up over here. It was in the dark, so it was really tricky to kind of see. I'll actually try and show you the track. I wonder if it's still here or if it's been walked over by an animal. It was kind of well hidden. I actually don't even know how we saw it last night. I think it was because we just stopped in the right place. But let's see if it's still here. It came from the power line side, this leopard, and then kind of headed further north. Can hardly even make it out anymore. Here it is. So there, he kind of came over the road. So he's got his pads at the hose. Walked the tracks there and there. So if I circle them, and they were sniffing and smelling all over this area. So obviously he came and came out, but now from here, unfortunately in the dark, I lost kind of sign of where he went. I don't know if he crossed over the road or if he was kind of, still still moving. I honestly have no idea. There was impalas all over this area last night, so I suspect that he was just watching those impalas, much like what we saw with Kara, just trying to look for any sort of opportunity where he could potentially hunt them. Those are all hyena tracks. The problem is that I drove here last night because I was obviously in the dark with grass and things like that. You don't see tracks that easily, and I only picked them up quite late. So I have this vehicle tracks all over this area. But I was hoping to come back and just see maybe, just maybe, one of these two leopards was successful. I have to just keep our eye out and listen. There are alarm calls coming from the northeast of where I am at the moment. You might be wondering why I'm not rushing there. It's because Aubrey is in that area. He's following tracks for lions, so I think it's them more than it is this leopard. But what intrigues me is that there's no tracks crossing Vuatela Access. Now Vuatela Access is running right here. It's literally not even 50 meters away. So I would have expected this leopard to have come out there. If it hasn't, he's crossed and he's gone back to Simbambili side, and is not actually still on the side anymore, because this block here is way too small and there's not a lot of big trees that he should have shown himself and should have made an appearance on that road. And if he killed, like I say, there's not a lot of trees there. There's one big main tree which is right next to the road, and people should have kind of picked up. There's two cars that have already come up this road, so they would have picked up any sign of something being around. Although you never know. I mean, I look at Kara yesterday. She was so well hidden. Kind of just drive past these cats sometimes. So let's check carefully here. Nope, this is hyenas. They were very busy in this area last night. Their tracks are absolutely everywhere. This is that impala herd that was being hunted by Kara last night. It's the same group. So this is where I expected them to be this morning, is in this more open sort of clearing around here. I wonder... Shame, if she did kill, she would have had a tough time. There's so many hyena tracks on this road this morning. They're literally everywhere. I think she would have really struggled to keep that kill. Alright, let me go this way and see if I can find anything. In the meantime, let's send you across to Mo and see what kind of predator he's looking for this morning.
Good morning everyone. It is a beautiful, chilly morning here in Tswalu Kalahari. Good to be back. There they are. And we've just located on a pair of battered foxes. Sinomala. And so, by the way, guys, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera, we've got Niels. And look at those beauties. The lovely thing about it getting closer to winter now for us is you have more and more nocturnal animals turning their activities more towards the daytime. So things like the battered foxes and, hopefully soon, the pangolins and so on, they start moving through the day. But just beautiful to be back here in the Kalahari. I've been off for quite some time. There's some allo grooming happening with the foxes. I think it might be a couple of pups that's just being a bit naughty and not staying, at the den site when mom and dad's not around. However, they're at that stage where they'll operate with the parents by this time, foraging and so on. But always still cool to see them. But yeah, great to be back. Been off for quite some time now, like I said. And it's just incredible to see how the Kalahari has changed from that beautiful green flush to a golden brown coloration. Yeah, guys, it's good to be back in front of the camera again, I have to say. I just love the foxes. They're just the cutest little things. And those ears, oh my soul. So yeah, like I said, guys, the main reason for when it becomes winter here in the Kalahari, Shreyas, for very long, the Battered Foxes was considered to be not part of the true fox species because of their molars, so their canines, their tooth structure. But up until, so that was up until relatively recently. For the past, I want to say almost 5, maybe 7 years, they've put them back into the fox family again. Because they ruled out that particular difference between them and the foxes. So they are now considered to be true foxes, but for very long they were considered to be not part of the true fox family just because of that canine structure. I actually even didn't know that until we had a conversation about it, and it popped up. So very interesting. But yeah, guys, to come back to the nocturnal animals changing their time into, their activity time into the more of a diurnal habit. It's just mainly because of not anything else apart from the availability of food. You'll find that most of our nocturnal animals around here mainly feeds on termites. So the Battered Foxes, the pangolins, the aardvarks, the aardwolf, all of those things. And because of that, when it becomes winter, we have freezing temperatures. So at the time of the day when it is normally activity time for things like them, that's when the termites are then not close to the surface of the earth, just because they also look for a little bit of warmth, and so they have to then change their behavior to more of a daytime activity, just because during the day it heats up just ever so slightly, so that the termites are then closer to the surface of the earth. To give you an idea, last year we had minus 10 degrees Celsius some mornings. So, I mean, that's just incredibly cold. And because of that, you can imagine if you're a termite, you wouldn't want to be close to anything that is as cold as that. So then they duck down a little bit deeper, and they have to then start looking for the termites during the day. But yeah, guys, we're going to move on. These Battered Foxes has done the same. Beautiful to see them so early in the morning. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to the bushwalk at Pridelands.
Good morning and welcome to Wild Earth. We are currently on bushwalk. My name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we have got Glenn. Our plan for this morning is to start off on this little rocky outcrop, to scan the whole horizon, to see which animals we can spot, and from then on determine if we're going to start making an approach or whatever we can find. It's absolutely a stunning morning over here. The temperature is not too cold. It's around about 17 degrees Celsius. The sun is up, and as always, I love sunrises. And we see that there's also a lot of cloud cover that's making its way in, which has led to a slightly warmer morning than normal. It seems as if we've got another cold front and its approach. But in the meanwhile, we're going to keep on scanning the horizon and see what we can find. Good morning, Alana. It's always great to see a sunrise. It's for me a promise to a new start of a day with a new opportunities, and just to know that I'm going to go out there and have fun in the bush. While we're scanning the horizon, we're going to hand you over to Tristan, who's busy viewing some very alert impalas.
With an impala, there's an impala male here that's just shouting constantly and like staring into the grass. Of course, now he's stopped because we've gone live. He's been doing it for like 10 minutes. I've been driven around this whole area looking, and I cannot find a single thing, but he just keeps staring into the grass and shouting and snorting and carrying on. So I don't know if maybe he's smelling something rather than actually seeing something. But he's quite fired up, that's for sure. And it's not the ratting call. You know, the rat, when they shout, it's that psh, psh, and then it starts gargling, you know. Whereas this guy is just shouting. He's just doing his little snort. But I don't know if it's because his females were starting to drift a little bit and he wanted to round them up. I'm not 100% sure. But like I say, of course he'll stop as soon as we kind of get you guys across to us. I don't know. I can't find any sign of Kara's tracks or anything like that coming out yet. I mean, I haven't gotten very far because he started alarm calling as I kind of turned up this road. And like I say, this is the same herd that she was stalking and going after last night. But they haven't moved very far, and everything seems to be fairly quiet here in that regard. The male leopard came here. I don't know if but he walked right here. So his tracks are on the edge here from last night. Just trying to see where he went. So he crossed in here. So he went exactly where Kara was hunting. Now, Kara, I'm not sure what her reaction would be to, if it is Tingana, what her reaction would be to him. If you have a look here, you'll see his track just going off on the right-hand side. Actually, don't worry about it. It's not very clear. Okay, we're going to carry on. Let's just try and figure out what's happened here and see if we can find either of their tracks. Hopefully one of them will come out and make an appearance.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
I got into wildlife filmmaking because of a passion for nature and a notion that I could make a difference. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun. A couple of times per week, we receive some very heartfelt messages from viewers telling us about how Wild Earth has made a difference in their life, whether it's helped them through a difficult period or simply helped them to reconnect with nature. I think that's why we do what we do.
We have a baby pangolin, This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Very good morning, and welcome to and beyond Ngala. We are currently exploring the southern area of Ngala. We just decided to, everyone's heading either west or east or further up north, and no one was coming south, so we decided, okay, let us come south. So you are with me, Rowan, Craig, behind the camera, and we are just about to hit the eastern boundary. So the tar road is in front of us, it's the open road, and then Manyeleti on the other side. So we can't drive on the tar road, we'll just be driving parallel to the tar road, due to the fact that my vehicle is not really very roadworthy. The flickers don't work, I don't have a windscreen, there's no review or side mirrors. So yeah, we'll just stay on our side. What we're hoping for is maybe to find a different pride of lions, or even some males that split off from the Mbiri pride. I think about 2 years ago now. So to me, they are still the Mbiri males, even though they are the older Mbiri males. But there used to be 4 of them, and the last time I saw them was about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. And they were usually in this area or this section of the reserve. Phenomenal buffalo hunters, but I think that's also something they, learned from their mothers. I know the Mbiri pride used to always come onto the southern side of Ngala and just hunt buffalo. Something you get used to. So, just to give you an update on the rest of the reserve, the lionesses with the cubs are still in the same area, and yeah, Nikki is with them. So I think due to the injury on that one lioness, she's not really moving too far. So I think they'll probably stay in the same area for quite some time. So we're going to explore a little bit further south, just check 2 more watering holes. And while we do so, we'll send you to Pridelands, who are looking at rocks.
Good morning and welcome back onto the bushwalk. At the moment we're staring at a beautiful dolerite outcrop that intruded between the older rock types of this area. So some of the oldest geology in this area dates to approximately 3.4 billion years ago. If we look at the rock, we'll see that it is actually busy peeling away. And this is referred to as onion skin weathering. And this is because of incredibly hot summer's days followed by rainstorms in the afternoon. And that rapid cooling process then will allow the rock to start peeling off. But We also find that this is quite important for a number of lizard species that we find in the area, which will use these little crevices. And one of these is a giant plated lizard. And they've actually learned that if they go into the crevice and they inflate their lungs and they make themselves bigger, it becomes harder for a predator to actually dislodge them from that little crack or fissure that has formed. So we often think of geology of an area that the subject can be quite daunting. However, it's actually not as daunting. It's actually fairly interesting. If we look at the soils that are derived from these rocks, they all lead to a very distinct soil type, and the soil type leads to a distinct vegetation structure, and eventually we'll find a very distinct animal population that occurs in this area. As we're facing eastwards, the granites are behind us, which is the oldest of the rocks, and as we continue eastward, we're now on the Dolerite Band, which is followed by a group of rocks that's known as basalts, which forms the eastern plains of the Kruger National Park. We also find that that specific soil type leads to the formation of nutrient-rich soils that has the ability to support large quantities of high-quality grazing grasses, such as red grass, which is one of the main attractions to that area for many a grazer. And eventually, as we progress slightly further east, we get to the Bombo Mountains, which forms the border between South Africa and Mozambique, which has again got its own distinct vegetation structure. We also find that the different rock types will weather and form very different landscapes, which makes it quite an interesting environment to work in and provides to the beauty of what we see on a daily basis. Good morning, TaylorMade. They can go both ways. It depends if we have large continental crusts that move together, and where they collide, they can potentially lead to the formation of new mountains, which creates their own unique landscapes, which I quite like. As one of my favorite fold mountains is actually the Cape Fold Mountains in the Western Cape. But yes, like any rock type, they can erode eventually through the process of weathering and then lead to a very different landscape over a period of time. And one of the main forces which erodes them is generally wind. And we also find that water is the other important erosion process, which sculptures those landscapes. In South Africa's past, we also underwent an ice age, which also lent to the formation of some of the landscapes which we see throughout Southern Africa. However, that's been very distant and hadn't had an effect for many thousands of years on the environment. We're going to continue our walk from here and go and see what we can go and find for the morning, and hopefully be back with you soon with some big animals. Good morning, TD. You're 100% right. They do provide a story, and every rock does provide a story. And even some of them so much more. Especially we've got sedimentary deposits where we find large bones and things of animals that used to live in the past. As we continue on our walk, we're going to hand you over to Tshala.
I love rocks. I do. Such cool, underappreciated parts of the natural world. We're here at the den. Not much is happening here. Unfortunately. That's okay. What is nice to see is that there are lots of tracks around. So definitely things are happening here and there is movement. Just not right now. We owe so much to rocks. I've just been thinking about geology and plate tectonics and stuff like that because JP has been talking about it. I'm so glad that he is. We owe our oceans, we owe water, moisture being released from the earth and then condensing and forming oceans. We owe that all to the geology of this planet. Love rocks. Apart from that, I think they're very pretty. It's interesting if you are interested in things like gemstones and diamonds, other precious and semi-precious stones, and you look at the areas in which they're found. They can be quite scattered. But if you look, they look quite scattered now, and you think, okay, they're found here, they're here, wherever. But if you look at what the planet looked like millions of years ago, when it was Laurasia or Gondwana and all of that, then you can see that those particular places were together at that time, and the seams had formed then. For example, one of my favorite stones is an alexandrite. And the seams of which alexandrite can be found in Brazil, in Madagascar, in India. It was first found in Russia. But that Russian seam seems to be a separate seam. A seam is where you find a particular deposit of minerals, and you find these precious gems in those areas. So now it seems that Madagascar, Brazil, some parts of Africa, and India all seem like very different areas. Why would they have this same deposit in very specific areas? And it's because about 250 million years ago, when the Earth was still, the continents were all formed in Gondwana, those areas were together. India, Madagascar, parts of Africa, and Brazil, like this, and then they spread out. So that seam formed then. I love seeing stuff like that. Love it. Very, very, very cool. Also, I do love that stone. It changes color in different types of light as a result of the construction of the crystal lattice and the different minerals in it, or different elements actually. Well, I've just passed Treehouse Dam. Nothing's happening there. But now I'm going to start moving south. I just want to have a bit of a listen, see if anything is going on around me. Not really. The alarm calls that were heard were sandy patch area where Tristan is working to try and find that leopard. But I'm going to try head towards Chitakatla now and look out for tracks. See if we get lucky with tracks moving into Chitwa or moving out of Chitwa.
Good morning and welcome back to Providence. We're on bushwalk at the moment and just had a quick glimpse of a spotted hyena that came in to come and have a drink. We're just going to see if he comes back or if we can relocate him by just moving a little bit further. I was actually quite surprised to come and see him because I normally come out at night time and come and drink. This guy probably had a long night out there, had a large meal, and quite often with predators, when they've consumed a large amount of protein, they do need water to assist with the digestion of their food. Spotted hyenas is a species that we find quite often in Pridelands, and we more often actually find their tracks. And I'm almost amazed about how many tracks we do find on a morning walk, which would suggest that there's an incredibly large population of them. That's also possibly the reason why the lionesses have moved out of this area for the moment, seeing that they have little cubs. When it comes to hyenas and lions, there's always been a competition between the two different species. And where they can, they will outcompete one another to ensure that they've got the maximum amount of food for themselves. So lions will kill hyenas, and hyenas will kill lion cubs. I've also seen old lions being killed by a number of hyenas in the past, which was quite fascinating to see. We have also interestingly found that that same group of hyenas dragged half of that carcass of a lion that was remaining over a distance of 8 kilometers back to a den over the rugged Bombo Mountains, which is quite an incredible feat. Hyenas are incredibly strong, and that's why they've got those heavy forequarters to support them when they are dragging pieces of meat and parts of a carcass away from a potential site where they were feeding to avoid further competition. We in general find that there's a lot of competition between most of the predators, with the poor cheetahs being at the bottom end of the pecking order, followed by African wild dog. And then the remainder of the three contenders are leopard, lion, as well as the spotted hyena. And quite often the lion can dominate by sheer size, but and then with the leopard, they just have to always be incredibly cautious about the other predators. We also find that is why leopard and lion often go and hide their cubs in remote rocky areas where there's sufficient cover for them to hide themselves from potential predators. Otherwise, they will go into a thicket where they'll hide the cubs. And only when mom comes back and calls for the cubs, then the cubs will come out to come and investigate. As we continue with our walk, we're going to hand you over to Ngala that is just located on some hippos.
So we are very far south in the reserve. We're at a place called Dog Dam, and there are 3 hippos here currently, which is actually quite nice because eventually, usually they end up leaving this area. I'm not too sure why, because this place retains its water, or it did, during the very bad drought. And there were no hippos, but there's lots of algae on the sides of the dam, and I think maybe it's just taking away some of the oxygen. It shouldn't really affect the hippos. I mean, they breathe air, like all mammals. See, there's every now and then there's just a nostril to the left coming up, and then goes down again. Of course, one shy hippo. The other 2 are very short. So they would have been out all night feeding and then come back to the water once the sun starts to rise, or just a little bit before that. It's their safe place, which is why they've evolved to be like this. Their ears, eyes and nostrils can all be above the water, while the rest of their body, whilst their bodies are below the water. Vivian, I think you're asking, how do hippos defend themselves whilst on land? So Vivian, I was actually hoping they would do it now, but they might not. I mean, the male weighs about 1.5 tons. That already is huge. So just an enormous animal. But then, if that doesn't scare you enough, they've got huge teeth. Absolutely massive. So on the bottom jaw, they've got 2 canines, or it looks like canines, that stick up, and then another 2 in the middle of them that stick forward. And so hippos, when they usually charge, they'll charge with their mouths open. And that's supposed to be very intimidating. Well, it is very intimidating. It's really one animal that I don't trust at all. You know, there's no big sign like any animal that feels uneasy with you. The tail would go up, ears go down, or flap out. Hippos, the tail is very tiny, the ears are very tiny, so they'll just come charging at you with their mouths open. Good way to defend themselves. I must say, I have never on Ngala seen a pride of lions kill a hippo. It's really one carcass I've never come across. I don't think our lions really know how to react to hippos. But it's definitely an animal that I am terrified of. So you won't really see me tracking on the banks of any of these dams. It's not my favorite thing to do around here. No, the other one's gone underwater as well. I think this is the male that we're looking at. Be 1 male and 2 females. Just behind him there's a fork-tailed drongo watching itself. Let's see if it flies into the water again. Daniela, hippos stay in the water every single day. It is their safe haven. So regardless if it's winter or summer, they'll be in the water. Well, the hippos around here, I think if you go into some of the larger rivers, or even the delta, you'll find hippos often lie on the banks, but also very, very close to the water. But around here, winter, summer, they'll be in the water. It is currently winter, and I can tell you it's currently not very warm, and the hippos are still in the water. I mean, I think in certain places, their skin would be something like 1 centimeter thick. Basically like wearing a wetsuit. I don't think they feel the cold like humans do. Yeah, regardless if it's winter or summer. Although sometimes you'll find the baby hippos and the mothers also on the banks trying to warm themselves a little bit, but always close to water. Saying that there's no baby here. Very peaceful watching them. Every now and then you'll just hear them breathing. Oh, finally noticed us. Good morning. Of course, he's walking at this stage. They can't really swim. So they walk at the bottom, which is actually quite interesting to see. When these dams did dry up, you could see the passageways that the hippos created at the base or on the bottom of any of these watering holes. I think I'm getting a bit of a cold every now and then. I'm losing my voice. So we're going to let them be. Let the hippos just relax in the water. They'll come out again this afternoon to feed, which is quite nice to come through here in the afternoons. Then they'll start yawning and bellowing and, yeah, start getting active. And then every now and then, probably not around here, I think this watering hole is a little bit too small, so they wouldn't come out if we're still here. But often at Clara Dam or Alfred Dam, they'll come out. Jackal, hippos do not breathe underwater. They are mammals, so they can keep their entire body underwater, but their nostrils will be out of water. That is how they breathe. So it's not a fishy. Oh, Craig, you're going to have to hold on here. This is a very bouncy road. Strange weather we're having. I think Tristan was saying they have rain predicted.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm sure we'll get Ngala back very soon. I've made it to the southern boundary. I've just decided to take the fire break this time instead of the actual boundary because I can see the boundary from the fire break, but it means that we don't have to contend with any kind of traffic. And we still have beautiful scenery and a not very bumpy road. I haven't heard any updates on Shasha or Langa or Sibui, but the reason I keep checking the Twin Dams area is because I know that Shasha, we've been having quite a few sightings with him right there. So, got to swing past just to see if we get lucky. We might also find some elephants. If we find both of them, whoa, it'll be too much. The elephants have certainly been busy in this area, but not exactly where we want them to be. That was so smooth. Well, we're almost at the dam. I'm going to keep an eye out. Maybe there'll be some sort of big reveal. Wouldn't that be lovely?
On the 27th of April, Wild Earth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what Wild Earth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
I was quite surprised and excited to learn that I had won the Wild Earth prize for March. My wife and I started watching Wild Earth during the lockdown, just to allow us to get out of the day-to-day routine and enjoy some of the bush sightings. Our favourites, of course, are watching the birds when they show them sometimes, and especially the leopards. That's always nice to see on the show. She will definitely be going with me, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy all aspects of the prize, as we don't get out into the bush often enough. Thank you very much, Wild Earth.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Alrighty guys, so we left those bat-eared foxes and have been bumbling around just a little bit. Came across, we'll show you now, it's just a bit difficult because I think it is a pup and he's either leading us to some type of big carcass or he's just busy being silly. But there's a black-backed jackal trotting in front of us in the road. Not quite, well, never quite standing still, so we're just trying to get to the point where he's going to stop and look at us. He's been doing this now for probably, well over a kilometer. Definitely seems like he's on a mission because, I mean, his nose is constantly on the ground and I think he might be smelling something or so. But yeah, guys, just so that you also know, I know we said we're going to try for the lions this morning. Our plans have slightly changed a bit. I see we're going to go a bit closer, but it looks like there's two blue wildebeest sizing each other up just after us. But while he's standing still, let's see if we can get this jackal quickly. See, there we go. Now he's getting a bit more well, not relaxed, but a bit more focused on whatever he was looking for. Now, this time of the year for the Kalahari, there's a lot of these canine pups in the bush. We're very close to the wild dogs also, hopefully giving birth. But as far as the smaller canines are concerned, the jackals and both species of fox, they all have an October, well, let's say late September, middle of October, beginning of November baby season. So lots of little ones in the bush. and that always provides for some good sightings, you know. That sound you can hear is a crimson-breasted shrike that's just busy saying hello to everyone this morning. As you can see, guys, quite a bit more on a mission than usual with the jackals. And that's just the beauty of you know, this time of the year. Well, starting this time of the year. I'm going to go a bit closer. Because it's cooler in the mornings, you find even the crepuscular animals being slightly more active for a little bit longer, which gives us an epic opportunity to be able to view them, you know, when the sun is out. So that's always great. We're going to be coming up. Yeah, those blue wildebeest are definitely sizing each other up. It doesn't look too serious. We'll see now. But the territorial male is definitely not happy about the youngster being around, and the jackal is also having a look at what they're doing now. You know, just that one boy, the older male, is a big individual. I'll show you now. It could also be that the younger one. So guys, when we look at these two, the one on the left is definitely a lot younger than the one on the right. Quickly over to another feed, guys.
Welcome back to the bushwalk. We just found a blind beak snake, and this one is known as a Shleagles blind beak snake. And the reason why we call them blind is because of the skin that goes over the eye. So they can't really see like what we will see because of the skins that's covering the eye. We also find that they've got a hard beak, which is designed for digging into soil. And they specifically will dig into termite mounds, where they find most of their food, which consists basically of termites and termite larvae. This is actually quite a fascinating specimen. It's one of the larger ones I've seen, and we often find that they can appear quite fat, especially on the abdomen, as that they store a lot of fat in that specific area to the back of the body, so that they can utilize that in times of food shortage. We don't often actually find them, as that they tend to be under the ground most of the time. This guy is probably looking for a new termite colony to move towards. We're just going to see if we can relocate on him. Oh, that's awesome. I just love these little guys. We're just going to see if we can keep up with him. Good morning, Lilipan. The eyes have probably become redundant because of them spending most of their time underground. And what we also find is that they're more focused on using their tongue to flick and then actually analyze their environment. So scent has become for them more of an important way of analyzing their environment rather than using sight in this case. Most reptiles that we see, for example snakes and most of the lizard species, some of them has got forked tongues, some of them has got a single tongue, but we quite often see snakes flicking out that little forked tongue. What they're doing is they're tasting the chemical compounds and elements in the air, pulling back that little tongue and then putting it in two little sheaths, which is connected with a Jacobson's organ, which is responsible for the analyzing of scent. It seems as if we've actually lost him. And meanwhile, while we've lost him, we're going to just see if we can find him again. But we're going to hand you over to Tswalu where they're bumbling around.
Alright guys, so yeah, we left those blue wildebeest. They got a bit of stage fright while we were sitting there looking at them, so both of them moved in their own directions, or maybe the tussle was just over. We quickly want to have a look. I heard there was carcass here somewhere, a relatively old one, but you know, hyenas don't really worry about a thing like that as long as there's something to nibble on. There's some leopard tracks on the road here as well going into the water. Maybe we're going to quickly have a look at the waterhole first. So yeah, as far as the kill is concerned, the hyenas are not really going to be fussy about a free meal, regardless of how old it is. I mean, obviously, if it gets to the point where it's not meat anymore, it's just blah, then they're not going to feed on that. But as long as there's something to nibble on, you know, even if it's just a bone, they're going to definitely be coming in. But I quickly just want to, this leopard, it looks like a small female. Just want to see if she's not here at the waterhole, because that road was dragged, well, I'm assuming yesterday afternoon, and those tracks look really, really good. There's a couple of gemsbok and blue wildebeest here at the waterhole, so I think if she is here, they either don't know about her or they just don't care. But we'll in any way just have a quick look, and if not, go back to where that carcass is supposed to be. Might have been during the night, so we'll have a swing around that carcass, see what's going on. Those could also be the tracks of her heading towards the commotion, you know, because you can see it's coming straight from the mountain, so possible that she was just from her resting spot yesterday afternoon, came in, had a quick drink, and then headed over to the carcass. Ah, there we go, there's some jackals here. So yeah, I mean guys, you'll see now there's not much left. Those jackals will come back soon. They just got a fright when we stopped, when we switched off the vehicle. There we go. Full bellies, full bellies. But if those jackals are so close to the kill at the moment, I doubt that there's going to be the leopard around. Maybe she moved on. Yeah, it's quite cool though to see. Now you can see there's a clear size difference. The one that we have on screen now is the female, and then the one that was walking away, that's the male. Male slightly larger than the female. With the jackals, they are monogamous, so they mate for life. Well, as long as both of them are alive. So it's not a strict thing. If they do get to the point where one of them doesn't make it, it's not like the remaining one won't ever find a new mate or so. Instinct compels them or drives them. Let's go a bit forward. But yeah, guys, as you can see, sorry, just to come back to the carcass, not a lot left. It's not old. But definitely still something to nibble on for the jackals. I don't think the leopards and so on will feed on that anymore. But yeah, guys, we're gonna...
Well, we found Tingana, but he's with a lioness. There's a lioness that's maybe about 20 meters from him. He's just seen her. She's calling, and she's looking around as well. Now, from where he is, if you look through the bush to above his head, basically, you might just make out her face through the thicket. She's busy walking now. She'll probably come out just to the left of that bush if she keeps going. You might just see her face through the thicket there. Now, I'm not sure if he's seen her. He's definitely heard her because she just called right now. And she's looking in this direction to see what's going on, because obviously we're parked with Tingana, and she's looking for the rest of the pride. I think that's the lioness with the blind eye from the Telemates. I think she's directly behind that bush. Tinky, you need to move, my boy, now. and slink off. You can see he's also carrying a bit of a wound on his front left leg. I think he's been tangling with warthogs or something like that. I can just see the lioness. She's actually moving away now. There she goes. She's just walking the opposite direction, luckily for him. You might be able to hear her in the background. I think what's happened is we were attracted to this area because of alarm calls. There's been impalas alarming everywhere because the pride is split all over the place, and he's also in amongst it. So we're following his tracks. We heard alarm calls, and I think she's obviously heard alarm calls too and thinks it's the rest of the pride, and that's why she's coming here and contact calling like that. She's going a low, soft call to try and make sure that she can kind of find where the rest are. It looks like she's moving off. I'm just trying to see. She's gone away now. She's moved off. By the looks of things. Which is good for you, Tingy. Lucky boy. No, you don't have to worry about a lioness chasing you this morning. I think his hair on the back of his neck must have stood up because he was just sitting down, very relaxed. And then there was this low contact call of a lion right behind him, and he just kind of went stiff and then turned around and looked. And luckily, like I say, she was far enough away that he didn't have to worry too much. But it was about 20 meters between the two. And luckily, there was a thicket between these two animals, because otherwise they definitely would have seen each other and he would have had to run. And there's not a lot of trees here for him to get up and out of the way of a lioness. All the trees that are around us are all quite small. So he's very lucky that she went the way that she did. But who have you been scrapping with, boy? You've got little wounds all over the place. I think he's been getting warthogged, or maybe a male impala got him when he was hunting those, but he's got a few little cuts by the looks of it on his side of his face as well. They're not claw wounds, they look more like just little kind of nicks from hunting. Otherwise, he looks fantastic. He looks like a young, fit fella, all things considered. So happy to see him. Peter, they do for the most part, but remember that a leopard is always trying to expand its territory. It's trying to get as much space, resources, and access to females as possible, and that means that the territory is constantly changing and evolving. What also happens is that there's competition, and so if you can maybe equate it to like us as people, let's say, if you live in a place and you expand your property as much as possible, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you have this beautiful massive property, but then the area becomes desirable to others who have got capital to spend, and slowly they come in and they start pushing you and they start wanting that land and they start trying to take it over, and eventually you see a slow decrease in the size of the property again as the value goes up. And it's pretty much the same thing with these guys, as younger individuals come in, so they push, and the kind of shape and the size of the territory changes dramatically. I'm sorry we couldn't see the lioness through the thicket, but she was right there. I mean, hopefully you could hear her. I think Tingana's going to get his way out of here as quick as possible. I don't think he wants to be able to deal with lionesses this morning. I think he wants to rather go and do his own thing. Surprisingly, we're not going to stick with the lioness. We're going to stay with Tingana and see what he gets up to. It's like being with an old friend, and so I'm going to thoroughly enjoy my morning with him. In the meantime, I'm going to send you across to Trish, who's made her way towards Chitwa.
Isn't that just wonderful? Quite a crazy sighting, and I'm so glad for Tristan. He was hoping to find Tingana last night, and this morning he is lucky. Today I am at Chitwa again, enjoying a beautiful morning. Still a bit quiet. But I've been attracting all the water monitors lately. Not that I have any problem with that whatsoever. Love me a water monitor. This one's on the side of the dam. Actually, the slope of the dam wall faces the east. So it's a really nice spot to warm up and bask. Throat is slightly inflated. What's up? The inflated throat is a type of signal, but it doesn't always necessarily mean aggression. But it's when the water monitor wants to make itself appear larger. So in this case, when it's sunbathing, it would also do that because it increases the surface area that would get nice and warm. And yes, we see you. See, you can look at that. How it's inflating that throat. What a beautiful, beautiful lizard. Or monitor lizard, rather. Very vivid coloring. That kind of fades as they get older. When they're young, it's especially vivid. But I found that regardless of age, around the face, it still maintains that very obvious black and white coloration as the body will start to fade, though. I love just chilling out here because the open area near Chitwa, or near the dam rather, is very, very good for movement of leopards. And there's also a sprinkling of antelope around, which means that they can, I'll be able to get a, there might be a vehicle passing us soon. You might just have to look at me for a moment while I give them a space. There we go, so they'll pass us now. There we go. Oh no, so awkward sometimes. Yeah, these open plains along the side of Chitwa, on the northern side of the dam. It's a good spot to listen out for alarm calls, so I like to just sit here sometimes and do that. And also because of the shape of Chitwa, it kind of all comes down to the dam, almost like an amphitheater in a way. You get a really nice audio, you can hear really well. At least in this spot. Also do remember that it's your live safari, everyone. So use the hashtag WildEarth or @FC and you can ask us your questions and your comments. I know that there's just such a beautiful sighting going on with Tristan especially, that you don't want to ask questions, you just want to watch, but please do. So let me send you over to Tristan while we're talking about him.
Well, it's pretty chilled where we are for now, but it has the potential to become pretty explosive quite fast. Still with Tingana, just following him through the block, but that lioness that we saw, she's busy fighting now with two male lions who are in amongst the pride. It must be the Plains Camp boys that have completely disrupted the Talamotes this morning and have chased them all over the place, which is why there's contact calls and all kinds of other stuff. It sounds like she's kind of fronting up to those two, and the rest of the pride is kind of stationary now, all grouping together. So it's not a major fight, but there is a little disturbance in the pride. And when that happens, lions can run in all directions, which means they could arrive here where we are with Tingana. Now, we're lucky that we can follow him because obviously we can go off-road in these areas, and a lot of you might be worried or concerned as to why we go off-road and whether or not it's something that is damaging. So off-roading needs to be done with some semblance of sensitivity. You can't just be driving around and smashing through things. And there's very specific trees and plants that we avoid at all costs. So anything that is a protected species is not to be driven over at all. It's something that we all try our very, 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 very best not to do. And what you try and do in off-roading is to try and follow game paths. So much like Tingana is following a game path, we kind of follow his route. And that normally means that the game paths are open enough for us to see any signs of any little animals like tortoises or anything like that, so we don't drive over them. And normally the game path is already a disturbed area where animals have walked a lot of the time. So if you actually look just to the left of where Tingana is right now, he's on a game path, and so are we. If you look here, through this, there's a line through the bush there. This is where animals are walking up and down regularly, and that little line, as long as we kind of stick to that, generally that's going to carve us through without actually having to drive over any trees. And the grass itself, remember, dies back in the winter period and then grows again in the summer. So that's okay to drive over, and it allows us the opportunity to be with an animal like this, that would otherwise normally be very shy, very reclusive, and very difficult to understand or spend time with. A lot of what we know about leopard, and particularly here in this area, is because we can off-road and we can get to where they are to be able to understand their behavior. A leopard, while it does scent mark and it walks on the road, and obviously we found his tracks this morning and that's led us to him, but they don't live on roads. They're not going to show all their behavior on roads, and for us to understand these animals and to learn and to be able to show all of you guys, being off-road really does make a big difference. But in saying that, we need to be careful about how we do it, and it's not just, a lot of you think that we just drive through here and smash through things, and that's not always the case. Alright, I'm going to try and see if we can just catch up with him and just get through this little gap. Hopefully he's going to settle down at some point and we won't have to do too much more driving.
The Mara Triangle is a jewel in the Kenyan conservation crown, and thanks to the dedication of the Mara Conservancy, it thrives as one of Earth's greatest national treasures.
We have been experiencing a reduction in the wire snails that we collect on a monthly basis, and this is basically attributed to our intense patrols.
Over the years, this courageous team of anti-poachers has reduced poaching to almost zero.
Mimi naitwa Stephen Olereso. Nimefanya kazi miaka 16 sasa. Kuanzia mwaka 2002. Hao wanadamu ni wenye utua sana inaogofya ni wale wenye wanaenda kama ndovu. Wanatumia kama bunduki. Sasa hiyo ndio huwa inakuanga hatari sana kwa sisi.
As a result of the global pandemic and the massive reduction in tourist revenue, the Mara Triangle is facing a financial crisis. They need your help if they are to continue their ability to protect this magical land.
I'm Nikki here at and Beyond Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page, and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Weer 'n bietjie terug aan hom. All right, guys, so just bear with us. We've got a sable that's making it a little bit difficult to get him on camera because he's moving around the whole time in these thickets. But look at how beautiful that male is. Beautiful horns. There we go. There we go. We came over this one dune. We're actually heading a little bit more into the dunes to try and see if we can't maybe find a cheetah or something like that. And we came across this beauty who was walking on the road straight towards us. And with the sables and the roans, they sometimes get this, I don't know, feeling inside of them where they just all of a sudden, while they're doing this now, you know, busy feeding like that, all of a sudden they just get this little hop and they run around in circles like crazy. I don't know if it's a tick that's biting in a wrong spot or so, but with those two antelope, and let's just see where if he comes through. There we go. Those two antelope species, you often find them doing that, just like a blue wildebeest almost also. Single male, this one. So for the species of sable that we have here on Tswalu, we've got the what they call the Mateti species. You get the Matetis and then the Zambesis. The Mateti Sable, you'll find that the males are pitch black in color with a white belly, and the females are more of a reddish brown, you know, a Kalahari sand coloration with a white belly. Whereas with the Zambezi species, they typically, both male and female are black in color with a white, just like this male now. But for this one, very easy to see that it's a male. You don't even have to look at the color. When you see horns like that, you know it's a boy. The females have a little bit straighter horns and a little thinner as well. You know, for the males, it's a bit more important to have those thick arching horns just because they use it for fighting with one another. Also, the ridges are a lot more pronounced, whereas the females, they don't, you know, they don't really need them for fighting. It's more for protecting themselves against a jackal or a leopard or something like that, maybe even lions. However, I think when it comes to lions, they're gonna rather run away.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. We're just busy watching one of the ant species that is moving around on this branch. Now, a specific ant species have evolved a very interesting strategy and a relationship with a small little insect which is known as an aphid. So the aphids will collect the moisture and nutrients from the tree by sucking at the tree, and in return what the ants will do is they will protect them, and then the aphids will provide them with nutritious moisture that they will excrete from their abdomen. An interesting little mutualistic relationship that they have evolved. The tree itself is known as a flaky thorn, and you can see how the bark peels off. One of the characteristics of this tree is incredibly large thorns, especially so when the tree is still quite young, and this is to protect it against browsers. So this older the tree normally becomes, the smaller the thorns will be, as it's costing the tree a lot of energy and investing to produce a thorn, and they would rather use that energy to produce leaves, which can produce more energy by means of photosynthesis, where sunlight is used to produce food for the tree. I also like this tree specifically. This is one of the trees that was taught to me in survival school, where you can actually dig up the roots and you can throw it into a fire in between the ash and cook it in a similar way as that you would cook a sweet potato, and they are quite tasty. Up to recent years, these trees were referred to as Acacias. They've now been divided into two separate groups, which is known as Senegalias and Hyenas. And this is based on the fact that they got straight or hooked thorns. In the meanwhile, we're going to continue our walk and hand you over to one of our other teams.
While JP is carrying on with his walk, Tingana's halted his and is just sitting as regal and as beautiful as ever. He's so cool. I love this cat. He has been an absolute institution in this area over many years, not the last few years. He's been around here for so long, and it's epic to see him still in such good condition and moving around and just being, well, him. I love how unpanicked he was by that lioness. She's like calls right behind him, and he kind of went stiff and he looked around his shoulder and he was like, oh, lion. But the experience was just to sit dead still and make sure his camouflage works in his favor. If he had run, it would have attracted attention and maybe she would have chased him. So instead he just sat there and watched, and if she had made a move where he felt like she was too close, you would have seen him go. But otherwise he showed all his experience, and now you can see he's sniffing the air a lot. He's got his nose up, and there's something that's intrigued him. He's been looking in the trees. I don't know if maybe there's a smell that he's picked up. We know that of all the cats out here, he has a nose for a kill, and can pick it up more than anybody else. So maybe that's what he's sniffing around for, and looking to try and get. But his movement is quite slow and methodical this morning. He's not striding. You can see he's just going nice and gently, doing his little walk, and he is an an absolute tank still. Look, he's still sniffing the grass. What have you smelt, boy? He's picking up something. He changed direction as well. He was heading more east, and now he's just going straight south. Puppy, the first time I saw Tingana, I'm not sure the exact date, but it was, I think, October 2011, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere there. So, yeah, it'll be 10 years this year that I've seen this male leopard, which is, when I think about it, it's crazy because it doesn't feel like 10 years. It feels like it's a lot faster than that. But, yeah, 10 years of watching him roam around. And actually the other day I was going through photographs and I went back to that first time that I saw him. And he looks so little and so young compared to what he does now. You're going to lie right there. Okay, I'm just going to position it slightly differently so that Morgan doesn't have this bush in the way. He looks so kind of young and little, and now obviously he's grown into this absolute tank who has this legendary status because of the time that he's put in, the shift that he's put in as a dominant individual. I absolutely love the fact that we've had this journey of 10 years and that he's stayed dominant. It's one of the longest dominance reigns in an area that I can think of. There's not that many that have gotten as many years as a dominant leopard as him. So, he's up there with the very kind of best in terms of legend cats of this area. Kampan, Kashan, these guys would be other leopards that also held territory for long periods. But I think what the amazing part for me is that Tingana, regardless of what we had as his age, I mean, when we first saw him, we thought he was around 4 or 5 years old, somewhere there. So that would put him at 14, 15, which is crazy old for a male leopard. But the condition that he's in, and even his teeth and everything else, indicates that maybe he was a little bit younger than that when we first saw him, and just that he's an impressive leopard, and we slightly misaged him. He also does have a big dewlap, always has. Maybe that just contributed to our estimation of his age being slightly off. Maybe he was only, sort of 3.5, 3. I don't know. I went back and looked at the pics just to try and see if I was wrong, and even when I look at the photographs, to me now, he still looks in that age bracket, that 4 or 5 years old kind of size. But it's amazing that he's still going and is in as good a condition as he's in. He really is looking fit, healthy, and fantastically well in many respects. You know, his coat looks good, his body condition looks good, he's got no skinning around the hips, and everything else looks as though he's in good nick. You can see he's grooming a little bit. He's got a bit of blood on him. I don't know if maybe he ate something last night. But while we sit and watch him groom a little bit, let's send you across to Mo and see how he's going.
Alrighty guys, so we've come across this beautiful herd of oryx. We'll move a little bit now when they all move out of the screen, just to get them all back again. But have a look, stunning to see so many little ones in the bush this year. You know, it's been an easier, well, for Kalahari standards, much easier than even average years, but much easier than the past couple of years for the moms to get to the point where they have a successful pregnancy. For very long, we've seen very little calves coming into the reserve, just because, you know, their bodies, the moms' bodies, were just not in a good enough condition to either fall pregnant or to see the pregnancy through. But as you can see, all of those ones that you can see now with the shorter horns, all of them are new additions to Tswalu. September babies from last year. So incredible to have that. Get the population growing a little bit. Not that we have a problem with their population, but they can definitely be more. As you can see now, after the cooler mornings that we have at the moment, they would have spent some time hiding from the breeze during the night, maybe on top of a dune behind a bush somewhere. I'm going to go back a little bit quickly. But yeah, so they would have spent some time hiding from the cold during the evening, and now that it's heating up, they're heading into the dune street looking to start their grazing activity. But just stunning to start seeing these, well, not only the little ones, but also, there we go, also the size of the herd that we have at the moment. For very long you saw the animals being 2s and 3s together. Now to have, well over 20 in one group, it's just very special. Alrighty guys, but yeah, as beautiful as they are heading a little bit far away from us now. So we're going to move on and see what we can find. But in the meantime, we're going to send you over to Pridelands. Let's find some caterpillars.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. We've just located in a group of processionary caterpillars, which is a larval stage of a bagnet moth. As you notice, that they've got quite prominent spines on them, and as you can see, they also clump together in large groups. So quite often they form little train-like movements where they will connect with one another and travel in groups of up to 100 plus. I think the biggest group I've actually counted was almost 300 individuals that formed a little bit of a train. There's very few things that eat them, and you don't really want to touch them. Those spines will create serious irritation if they make contact with your skin. Even the powdery scales in the adult moth can be creating a lot of irritation when it comes onto contact with the skin. So I've, in the past, quite at night, often wanting to read a little bit in summer, sat down and put my headlamp on. And unfortunately, these moths are then attracted to the headlamp, and if they make contact with your skin, you're going to know about it. The caterpillars are actually even worse than the moth is. What I do find quite fascinating is that there's very few animals that can eat these. However, when it does come to birds such as cuckoos, which are all migrants that come and breed in South Africa, they actually will feed on these. And as a little gift for the new girlfriend that I've just found, they will present her with a number of these hairy caterpillars. And based on that little bond that's created, she will decide if she's going to keep him or not. So the hairs will also regurgitate back out in a small little ball without affecting the cuckoo in any manner. These caterpillars also tend to quite often be on the raisin bushes when we do find them. So most plant species have most caterpillar species which we find in moths or butterflies, they have got a very specific larval plant food that they will actually target. And it seems if a raisin bush is that specific larval plant food of a choice for the processionary caterpillar. Let's see what they get up to and watch them a little bit longer on the screen as they're busy chewing away on the leaves. It's quite interesting to see how we can find the damage on the edges of the leaf tips where they've busy been feeding. We're going to continue our walk and go and see what else we can find, but somebody else has just caught somebody in the act of sleeping. Let's go and see who is there and who is taking a nap.
I prefer to refer to it in the case of Tingana as sausaging. This is his sausage mode where he's got a little tummy on him and he just finds himself a little spot and goes horizontal for a while. I think he's a happy cat right now. He's got himself a little nice grassy patch. It's fairly kind of sheltered here. There's cloud cover, so it's not hot today. And he's going to have an almighty nap, I think, during the course of this morning. So Stardust, it's interesting because I don't know. It's probably the best way to answer this because he certainly isn't as territorial in his. Probably the best way to answer this because he certainly isn't as territorial in his usual areas. So areas like Gowrie Dam, Mulawati, the normal sort of sections of Yuma that we used to see. But he still moves around Buffelshoek and Simambili area now. I was checking his tracks today just to see if he's scent marking, and he's definitely going up to bushes and rubbing on them. But I couldn't find any spots of urine on the leaves. So often, if you go to a tree where they've scent marked, you can actually see the little droplets of their urine on the leaves themselves, particularly in dusty conditions like this. As the wind blows, the dust collects on those little droplets, and it's quite visible. So I couldn't see a lot of that, but he's definitely rubbing his face from the tracks on the trees and coming down. So he is marking in some way, but we don't hear him vocalizing nearly as much. So I don't think he's as territorial as he used to be. I think he's starting to go in the way of more nomadic now. And the fact that he wasn't mating with Insele this time around and she only mated with Nhlangula was probably an indicator of him going into a more nomadic, more kind of undercover life. He's got a lot of competition around him. I know we haven't seen a lot of male leopards lately, but that's not to say they're not around. There's tracks for males constantly. I know Mulawati apparently was heard on the dam cam this morning. There was tracks for a male leopard going into Buffelshoek from Torchwood side. We know that in the western side there's 3 boys that side at the moment. So there's a lot of male leopards around, and for him to vocalize and scent mark is going to attract more attention. And if he's at that age now where he's just, feels tired and doesn't really want to do all that stuff and doesn't want to attract attention from the younger boys, well, then it's better for him just to kind of stay quiet and do that. But I don't really know. I haven't spent enough time with him of late to really understand his behavior. It's this is the problem with, only being in here for 2 weeks at a time and then going away for 2 months and then coming back. It really is difficult for us to understand a lot of what his behavior is. We kind of need to spend months with him, and then we can start to figure out how territorial he is and whether or not he is actually in any way a territorial male. The thing is we hardly ever hear him calling. I mean, last night, this morning, there was no calls coming from him, and he's not like he's been hunting this morning. He's been by the looks of it, just sort of ambling and patrol. And normally male leopards in the morning when they're doing that are vocal. They like to make a little noise just to try and establish themselves and make sure that everybody knows that it's their territory. What intrigues me, though, is that I could see where it was actually quite cool. I should have tried to take a photo of it, but I was just kind of trying to go, and we heard Impala's alarm call, so I didn't actually take the photo of it. But you could see where Kara walked, and actually there was a perfect little print of her track, and his nose had printed on top of the track. You could see where he was sniffing on top of her footprints, but she went off into Manuleti and he turned this way, so obviously he wasn't too concerned with her, and just let her kind of go wherever she went, and he carried on. But it was quite cool just to see this little nose mark on the back of the pad from Tingana. Yes, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Sometimes you can get it, but most of the time the cats don't actually push their nose onto the sand, they just hover above it. But obviously his depth perception was slightly out and his nose just bumped the track. Jessica is 6 years old. No, so leopards aren't quite as fast as lions. Lions are a little faster. But in saying that, the two individuals we were talking about just now when it came to that old lioness and him are both older. So I don't know, maybe he would have been able to outrun her. I'm not sure. But you would have found that even if there wasn't any nice tree, he would have gone up any tree that he feels like he could have balanced on that she wouldn't be able to balance on. So it might even look like the most ridiculous small tree, but if he can get up onto the branch and her weight being so much more than his can't, then he'll do that. So, luckily for him, he didn't have to do that, but there wasn't a lot around. I was looking at all the trees. It was mostly just terminalias and small bush willows, much like what we've got around him at the moment. So if you look around here, there's not a huge amount of trees. Obviously, there's a big tree over there, but if you look at these kind of trees, if you look to the left, it's all small, kind of spindly branches, and that's really what he had around him when that lioness was there. There was none of those big trees, so he would have had a bit of a tough time, but luckily for him, she didn't see him and was more worried probably about two male lions chasing her than worrying about Tingana and what he's up to. But I think he's going to have a good nap. It sounds like also they've lost all the lions now. It seems like they've all run into different places. I'm sure they'll pick them up again, but it sounds like there's just a bit of fracturing that's going on within them. And it's a bold move because we know that those Plains Camp males, the last time they had an interaction with the pride was with the Nkuhuma pride, and the Nkuhumas chased them. But this is a very different story by the sounds of things this morning. It sounds like they're more the aggressors, and so it seems like they're trying to assert themselves a lot more. What that means for Darkmane, I have no idea. I don't think it's a great sign that he's not around and not responding to the calls and being here. It might mean that he's decided he's going to just kind of keep a low profile and not attract too much attention to himself, which, to be honest, is probably the wise move given his condition. Although 2 against 1, I don't know, maybe he could defend himself. It's tricky. He's obviously getting older now, and his leg is still swollen and sore. I don't know, it's a tough call, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that dynamic, and see whether or not, those males end up being more dominant here, or if the tortured male starts to get involved, or that S8 male, or do we see, the Kruger males pushing more. It's a lot that's going on in the lion world, far more than in the male leopard world, even though we've got a lot of male leopards at the moment. No one's really hammering each other, and everybody seems to be pretty stable at this stage. All right, we unfortunately are going to have to leave Tingana. I don't want to, but we need to make space for others. So what we'll do is just do it out and then hopefully be able to come back when they're done. And hopefully it won't take too long. But in the meantime, we'll just let him have a bit of a nap with some others.
If you love to watch Wild Earth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions, join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
I was quite surprised and excited to learn that I had won the Wild Earth prize for March. My wife and I started watching Wild Earth during the lockdown, just to allow us to get out of the day-to-day routine and enjoy some of the bush sightings. Our favorites, of course, are watching the birds when they show them sometimes, and especially the leopards. That's always nice to see on the show. She will definitely be going with me, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy all aspects of the prize, as we don't get out into the bush often enough. Thank you very much, Wild Earth.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want. The wildebeest cross, is it trying? The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky, lucky wildebeest. You have another day to leave.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hello, I'm Marna, your Wild Earth Safari guide from and beyond Gala. What's my favorite animal? Definitely elephants, and in particular an elephant bull, an old elephant bull. I think the sheer size partnered with their experience because they grow so old. I always wonder what they've seen and how they've seen the bush change over those many years. Join me or one of the other guides twice a day on Wild Earth.
Good morning and welcome back to the bushwalk at Bridlands. We just located on a breeding herd of elephants, or they located on us as we came down a little footpath as we were making our way back towards the dam. We quickly repositioned ourselves with the wind in our favour, as well as putting ourselves in a safe area where they cannot get to us. That's just absolutely amazing to watch such a big breeding herd on foot and having them so close by. These guys must have gone and had a drink in the meanwhile and now started to move away from the water to go and feed for the rest of the day. It's actually quite interesting how quiet it's been this morning with large animals such as elephant and buffalo, which we normally find very quickly on our walks. And especially with the mornings normally heating up fairly quickly, they come and drink fairly quickly as well. But this cool overcast weather has brought in a little bit of a change in the behavior of the animals. We even see that the wind speed has now picked up very rapidly as this cold front is moving in. So there's always a lot of different factors that we have to take into account when we are walking, and especially when we're walking in areas where there's a large amount of dangerous animals. One of them is the different types of social structures which we can look at. There's a different way that we would approach breeding herds compared to elephant bulls, which is in bachelor herds, and compared to single bulls that potentially might be in must. We also have to take in consideration things such as wind direction, wind speed. We also have to take sunlight in consideration, and factors even such as past history of specific individual animals when we decide on making an approach. Even temperature can affect the animals. We quite often find in a late dry season when elephants become they're not finding enough water, they can often become stressed and irritated with us. They've now moved off, and they're going to continue their morning on their way. We're going to continue this way, and they'll probably go out feeding for the rest of the day. As already mentioned, elephants can spend up to 21 hours of a day just simply focusing on eating, as that they've got such a high energy requirement, and that their food that they feed on is actually such a low quality energy value. And this is why they can eat up to sometimes 300 kilograms of food in a single day. I just want to see what they're doing. There's one more that's quite close by to us. It's just behind the trees in the distance there. And he's also now moving away. While we're watching the elephants disappearing, we're going to hand you over to Roan to go and see what he has there in the riverbed.
So we are in the Timavati riverbed. We decided to come back to the land of the living. The south was just completely dead. Currently, though, the reason I'm driving so slowly is because there are tracks of leopards going up and down here, and this would be the new Zulu leap. So the female and her two youngsters, one of which is a male, one of which is a female. So the two youngsters we know are quite shy, very unrelaxed with vehicles, but if the mom's around and they have a carcass, we would be able to find them. So we're just checking slowly. It seems like majority of the trucks go that way, up onto the northern bank, which is quite a tough spot for us because the next crossing is maybe about 1.5 kilometers, and then to drive parallel to the river to get there is nearly impossible. Nearly impossible. Otherwise, not too much has changed. There are tracks of the Birmingham Pride in the south, but I think what happened there is they went west of the Wildlife College to an area we just call the Block of Death. Not because anything that goes there dies, it's so thick that if you off-road there, you might die. Actually, I might die. So no one likes driving in there, so I don't think anyone is actually tracking them this afternoon. Anyway, we'll just continue down the Timavati, see if we can find anything else. Maybe bump into the young male, the Birmingham young male. Not too sure, but I am quite happy to be out of the south, if I'm honest. Very slow start to the day. It's like Tristan was having the most fun. So we checked every tree carefully to see if there's any sign of a carcass in it, and just could not find anything. Darcy, sorry, the comms are a bit broken up. Would you mind sending the question again? Do we have rock art on Ngala? Darcy, no. Not that we've seen. What we used to be able to find, though, are old pots and stuff, especially grinding pots, but no rock art. That would be very cool, Darcy. Very, very, very cool. But no, not that we found yet, and I'm pretty sure we've walked this place flat and couldn't find rock art. Maybe I should draw something on a rock for next rangers to come. Okay, so we are going straight in the riverbed for quite a long time. I think we'll see if we can catch up with the Birmingham young male. If he has moved too far, hopefully, fingers crossed. But for now, I'll send you over to Tswalu, who I think has found some cheetah.
Relatively close Battered fox. By himself, though, which was strange. Just want to see if it's moved behind the bush. I just want to see if we get a better view of him again. Otherwise, we'll just continue driving. Maybe there's another one around here somewhere. But quite strange to see them by themselves. You know, with the smaller canines, like I've mentioned earlier this morning, the jackals as well, they are monogamous. So you find them in pairs, or you'll find the pups all together or so. So quite strange to see this one by itself. There's a possibility that it might be a youngster from, you know, that's just over a year old now, that's looking for a mate of its own, and that's why he's by himself. Or the other possibility is, unfortunately, that his mate, his or her mate, because I couldn't see whether it was male or female, didn't make it. The Battered foxes being so small, unfortunately, they are small enough for a lot of things to grab them. You know, being nocturnal, you'll find that the spotted eagle owls and especially the Varro's eagle owls will go for them. Often you'll find even black-backed jackals going for the pups. Things like a leopard, they love them. When they come across them, they'll definitely go for them, especially around here in the Kalahari. They're actually considered to be, guys, there's sorry, I'm freezing now because it's such a cool sighting. Aardwolf in its burrow right next to us. Look at that. They're ducked in now. But okay, let's just see. I think I might actually give it some room. But see there, that burrow there was an aardwolf sitting right at the mouth of the burrow. I think it's going to sun itself a little bit. I'm going to move back and we'll see if it doesn't want to come out again. But this is super cool. That is incredible. Let's see if when we give it some room, if it doesn't want to pop back out again. The bushes is going to make it a little difficult, but we'll just give it some space and see if maybe it wants to allow us to do so. Yeah, that was cool now. I know it was a quick one, guys, but believe me, most of the time the aardwolf sightings, when it's so close to you, is quick ones. Let's go past. These bushes are going to be tough. Past and then pop back out to turn around again. But this is something that we need to remember for the future, because if they've got a burrow, there might be small ones as well. It's just, yeah, from this side it's going to be better. Well, I think so. Now we just need the aardwolf to come out again. To come back to the Battered foxes, guys, while we wait for that aardwolf to potentially make an appearance again, a lot of the things can go for them. I was saying earlier about the leopard. They actually considered to be a staple diet for for the leopards around here in the Kalahari. More Kalahari. I'm sure it will be the same case over here at Tswalu as well. But unfortunately for the Battered foxes being so small, there's quite a lot of things that can go for them. You know, so it's not an uncommon case to lose a mate or lose a pup or so for them. So I think that might have been the case, because the one that we saw just now, before we found this aardwolf, was, by the looks of it, already an adult. So I don't think it was one just looking for a mate. I think it was one definitely looking for a mate, but that lost its mate. So yeah, guys, with the aardwolf and its burrow, aardwolf are typically burrow-dwelling animals. You'll sometimes find them in the middle of the day or so, if they've foraged a bit far away from their burrow site, that they then go and just chill under a bush for and wait for it to become nighttime, or if it's during winter, they'll in any way be active during the day. But you'll often find them at burrow sites like this one that we saw right now. Most likely, if he didn't make the burrow by himself or herself, it's potentially something like an aardvark or a by the size of the burrow, I think it might have been something like a pangolin or so that made the initial burrow, and the aardwolf then just made it, maybe a little bigger or a little wider or so to fit their needs. But I'm very sure that if they do need to, they'll be able to create a sort of a burrow system by themselves. But that would be out of absolute necessity. I mean, you don't often find them creating their own burrows. They'll use existing burrows. It's just a waste of energy for them to be able to have to create their own burrow systems. So also they'll not only make use of one burrow system, you'll find that they will have several ones throughout their home range, and they only become static at one particular burrow system as soon as they've got pups or cubs. Then they'll have to go back to the burrow every night or every day. So yeah, guys, I think we're going to sit here for a little bit, see if that aardwolf comes out. I really hope it does. For the meanwhile, we're going to send you over to Tristan.
I hope it does too. We're still with Tingana because we're waiting for this other car to get in here, because otherwise no one will find him. We are right in the middle of a block, and it is very, very, very difficult to get in here. If you don't know where you're going, it will be like a needle in a haystack. So I'm just trying to get another car in, and we thought, well, while we're waiting, we might as well spend a little bit more time with him. But you can see he's having the best nap. This Tingana, it looks like he just wants a cuddle, doesn't he? He's kind of got his head over his paw like that. And what is noticeable immediately from this angle is just look at how deep his chest is and shoulder area. Oh, now he flopped down, but I was going to say, if you look at the height from the ground to the top of the shoulders, you realize how much power leopards have in that front end. It's so big and bulky in that front section. I'm just trying to listen for this vehicle because I can hear a vehicle not too far now. It's been a process to try to get somebody to this point. Didn't think it was that complicated because we kind of came in on a track and it should be quite visible to see where I drove. So hold on. Go ahead.
Please let me know if you hear my mobile. I'm going to give you a ref again.
Copy. Yeah, I can hear you, Mike. Just keep coming southeast from where you are. You'll find me. You're not far now.
Copy. Thank you so much.
So, like I say, it's tricky in these kind of situations because I suppose maybe that's a system we should work on as a GPS pin location system for a radio unit on vehicles, where you just put the pin up and everyone can find it. But the old school method is basically you listen and you wait, and then somebody just revs their engine a little bit, and you hear where the rev is, and then you slowly go forward a little bit, and then you ask them to do it again, and eventually you get to the point where you find each other out here, because there's only so much you can do east and west and north and south from roads. At some points when you're right in the center of an area, it takes a bit of time to get somebody in. All right, Tingy's sleeping. This car's going to come in. We're going to leave. And in the meantime, let's send you across to JP at Pridelands.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. We've just got back to Ndlovu Dam. Wind speed started picking up. And we went to go and look for more open and safer areas to walk. And as we got here, we found a family of Egyptian geese. As mentioned before, they're not true geese, they're actually ducks, however incorrectly named so by the early settlers. We also find that there's a number of other bird species which has been incorrectly named. One of those are birds that I find quite often in the eastern plains of Kruger National Park, as well as at Tswalu in the Kalahari, and that is a corrie bustard, which is in Afrikaans known as a hompo, which means a glue peacock, which I still find very strange. And we can go on with a list of odd-named birds. But let's get back to the Egyptian geese. So we often find that they can lay up to 22 eggs at a time. And what they normally do is they lay the eggs directly onto the ground, or they will use a nest platform from another species. And sometimes those nest platforms are up to 2 to 3 meters high up in a tree, and that might be right on top of a hammerkop's nest at times. Now, with the ducks and geese, their young is actually precocial, which means that they can immediately start moving after that they've hatched. They will have got down feathers, so they're insulated, and they can start feeding themselves as well. So generally what will happen is that the parents will fly down. They'll start calling, and then these little chicks will jump out of a nest, no strings attached at all, and they'll float down to the ground. And from there follow the parents on their daily activities, busy feeding. So we find that a lot of birds will have a number of different strategies when it comes to nesting. Some of those will lay their eggs directly onto the ground, where minimal energy is spent on producing a nest, up to a large amount of continuous energy and effort that has been put into providing a nest structure that is functional all year round. But in most cases, it's only used as an egg receptacle. However, with the social ball weavers, we find that those nests are continuously being fixed, repaired, and they're basically used throughout the year to insulate them against the extreme weather temperatures. There's a number of bird species in the low veld where we are that also does that same behavior. One of them is a small little finch with a red band across the throat, which is known as a cutthroat finch. They will often use the nests of other birds either to lay their eggs inside or to insulate themselves against extreme weather conditions. I just want to see if we can get a better view on our ducks, or our Egyptian geese, as they're locally named. Most of you will be familiar with them. They're quite loud, noisy species of ducks. And we often find that they'll even be on your swimming pool in the suburban area if they can occupy that area. And sports fields and other places where they will spend grazing throughout the day. Like most of the other duck species, like the dabbling ducks, which feed in water, these guys will actually graze on land when they are in search of food. It seems that they just decided it's time to head out of the water and go for a little bit of a foraging session.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
I love being a cam up for Wild Earth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that is truly, truly magical.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we're still in the Timbavati riverbed. We actually decided just to, carry on going. Probably for another 8 or so kilometers, just to see what we can find. And while we were driving, we were discussing, imagine doing safari in a tuk-tuk. So for those of you who don't know, it's like basically a bike with a shovel on the back that 2 people can sit in. And then we had some crazy ideas. Imagine converting a Honda R1 or Hayabusa or one of those super bikes into a tuk-tuk and then doing safari on it. I think it'd be terrifying driving away from a lion in a tuk-tuk. And that reminded me of that. There's this video in India of 2 guys on a bike that are just literally cruising down the road, and the next moment a tiger charges from the side and it misses them by about this much. Absolutely terrifying. It's crazy how fast these animals can run. So I think I'll stick to the trusty Land Cruiser just because of that video. There's a lot of baboon tracks here. There's a troop of baboons that sleep either on the southern bank close to the next crossing, Newcastle crossing, or at the previous crossing at Devonshire, and they move in and around this piece of the riverbed. Quite fun to watch them in the wild. When they're out here, they're cute, they're nice to watch. James, there was water in this riverbed for maybe 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. It was in my previous work cycle. So we work for 6 weeks, 7 days a week, and then we get 2 weeks off. And I just got back from my leave now. So yeah, sometime 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. We've had a lot of rain. We've had double the amount of rainfall this year than is our usual annual rain. So we had nearly 900 mils of rain during this rainy season. It is so much. Wonderful though, we needed it, because before then we went through very bad drought. But now this is why the bush is so thick. Okay, so while we keep looking for basically anything, I'm going to send you to Pridelands with their Ellies.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We've got a breeding herd of some 30 elephants. It's just approaching this waterhole in front of us. This is a number of small individuals in the group as well. So hopefully they're also going to quickly have a drink and then maybe they're going to swim, which I'm really hoping that they're going to do. So once again, it just always excites me to see them when they do swim. It excites me to see when they approach water. And we could watch them from a distance already that they were coming. And then as they were getting closer, the smaller ones just becoming faster and faster and faster as they're getting towards the water. There was also a warthog that was just busy drinking there a few minutes ago as they were approaching, and he wasn't too impressed with over 30 elephants approaching him at speed, and he decided that no way, so this is time to duck, and he made his way out here. Would have loved to show him as well, but let's see what these elephants get up to. I think let's just enjoy the sounds of nature. Let's enjoy the sounds that they create while they're drinking and splashing around in the water. Good morning, horse lover. Yes, it is an awesome sighting, and I'm absolutely stoked being here watching them. And I can never get enough of elephants. They're always doing something. They're always excited. They're always up to something. There's so many different personalities, and yeah, they're smart animals, and they often will work out solutions to challenges. And that's what I enjoy about watching them. So we're going to watch them a little bit longer. But let's go over to Trishala. I think she's just located on some buffalo.
We are here on Torchwood. We've been doing a little bit of looking around on Torchwood, hoping to find Tundi and Marips, but no luck. Instead, we found 2 Duggar boys. The African buffalo. To me, they always look so muscular. Yesterday we saw a beast of a buffalo. These guys are not bad themselves, though. I love how curious they are. They lift up their heads every now and then and look at you. Yep, on cue. But they won't watch you while their head's down. Or at least so you think. But buffalo, like other bovids, have pupils that allow them to look at the horizontal plane while their heads are down, so they can still look out for predators even while their heads are down and they're busy grazing, like cows. Cows do a similar thing. And just so you know, cows and these African buffalo are very distantly related. They're both bovids, but that's about as close as their relation goes. The similarities in their build and their habits are as a result of convergent evolution. Just because they look cattle-like doesn't mean that they are glorified cows. Certainly not. They're one of the most feared animals out here by hunters and by people who are on foot. Hi, Freddie Blue Moon. What a lovely name. Let me move back and see if we can still get a view of these guys. You'd like to know, Freddie Blue Moon, what digestive system out here is most similar to a human digestive system. This takes a bit of thinking on my part, but I would imagine that apes, omnivorous apes, baboons, chimps would have a digestive system most closely resembles our own. Oh, wow. They've moved on. The buffalo, that is. But we'll keep moving. So our digestive system has to be able to digest both meat and vegetation. But just so you know, our digestive system cannot, in any capacity, digest cellulose. So we don't have, while we do have a... Oh. Hello. While we do have a gut microbiome, we do not have anything like a rumen or a hindgut fermentation sac of some sort. So we can't digest cellulose. Wow. I haven't been looked like that in a very long time. That was a look of like such disappointment. Now he's peeping at me through the bush. It's okay. I mean, we're friends, right? They're so curious, and it's very cute, despite their massive size and their horns. I think they're quite cute. Seems like we're having an awkward moment of tension here. They have an excellent sense of smell, so even when they're unsure about you, when they're eating and all of that, they'll always point with their nose. Oh no, ant. No. Sorry, that ant was just under my cap. They'll look at you and then pick up their nose. When they see predators, they'll pick up their nose. And that's because they have an excellent sense of smell. It helps them while they're feeding, and obviously to make sure that they don't fall prey. Pick up the scent of predators easily. I wonder if you can see that the boss of this individual that we were just looking at isn't fused at the top. But it certainly is still a boss, but you can see that it's got that kind of middle part that looks like a Charlie Chaplin-esque middle part. And then I'm going to try and get the boss of the other individual, which is fused. But it's not a result of there being a huge age difference between these two. As I moved, this other one came in, popped its head out again. It's okay, I'm moving to see your friend. I'm sorry, maybe it's because I called it Charlie Chaplin-esque. Just tell me when we have a gap there for this one's boss. Okay. So we're going to have a look at this one. This one's boss is larger. It is. There is probably an age difference between them. Probably within their herds before they came out and became Dagger boys, there were also a difference in their dominance in whichever herd they were in, because their hierarchy, or the dominance hierarchy, the higher up they are, can actually... There's some evidence to suggest that the growth of the boss can be related to their hierarchy. So maybe there's a difference there too. But whether it fuses or not, so you saw the one had the very clear part and the one didn't. Whether it fuses or not is a result of their genetics. But clearly it's not a big problem. Now they're gone, so we can move on. Obviously it's not a big problem because they're still very successful. But just means there's a slightly different look. And you'll find the boss, the older they get, if you see a really old bull, it can start to separate too, but not separate like that with that part. Anyway, I'm going to send you now over to a very big mammal, but it's not a buffalo.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. We've just had an elephant bull that came up quite close close by to come and see what we are. The wind direction that was swirling, he's now moving away from us. It's the very same bull that we had yesterday morning at Leopard Pan. And I just noticed that his ear pattern as well as the length of his tusk. And he's also in must, as what we noticed yesterday. So he's still continuously dribbling large amounts of urine as he came towards us. You can also see that the insides of the legs are kind of much more moisture on it this morning from the urine that's been staining it. And for a moment, we could smell him again. And then on our elephants, there's another 10 or 15 elephants that has just joined the larger breeding herd, but we have on the opposite side of a dam. I still continuously drinking. Some of the individuals have gone to the back of this tree. There's a muddy area over there that they would like to go and wallow in. Good morning and welcome to the show. And with regards to your question, a normal herd is generally a breeding herd, but we also get bachelor herds. So a normal herd consists basically out of a dominant female, which is the matriarch, which leads the group. She's also the oldest and the wisest of all these cows. And then her associated daughters and offspring. What I find fascinating is that that specific cow will share all the knowledge that she's gained through a lifetime of experiences with her daughters, and eventually by the time that she's too old to lead that group, or should something happen to her, that knowledge will then be passed down to the next generation of elephants, with the oldest daughter in the group taking over the control of a group from there on. When it comes to the bachelor herds, that's all boys group, and they're generally males from up to 12 to 15 years. So under 12 or 15 years, the males will still associate with the breeding herd. And then up to 20, 25 years of age, they will stay in those bachelor herds and then start moving about on their own. You can see that fairly large bull coming in. That's the one that we just had in our sight. He's a must. I don't know if it's possible if we can maybe view closer onto his hind legs. You'll see that there's a froth-like substance between the penis sheath and the hind legs are all stained wet, and he's continuously dribbling more urine. He's going to come and see if there's any of the females in this group that is in a reproductive condition. You can see how the trunk is moving around. He's busy smelling, and he's detecting which of these females can potentially be in a reproductive state. One of the other things that we can also notice if we do have that bull still in our viewfinder is that there's a large streak on the temporal gland that is from must, that is busy coming down the side of the temporal gland. And we find that even with male and female, they all have a temporal gland, but in the females it's considerably small, less than 800 grams. And in the bulls, it's almost between 1.2 and 2 kilograms in weight, if I remember correctly in the statistics, just purely because they go into must and they give so much more of the secretion off. But in the case of the females, it normally indicates stress. As they walk, they also wipe that substance off on branches, and that is what other bulls in the area will detect. And if you're a smaller bull, then you'll know that you must get out there or switch off your must to prevent being detected by this larger male.
Well, we've got a beautiful scene actually, as I haven't seen clovers like this, well, not clovers actually, they're a type of kind of clover by the looks of things. I'm actually not 100% sure what it even is, this plant, but there's these interesting little insects that are on them. There's these kind of orange reddish beetles with black on them, and there are hundreds of them. When you actually look with binos through this stuff, you can find them all over the place, but I've never seen them before, certainly not here at Djuma. So I have no idea what they are. I was just having a little look to see if I could figure out what kind of family they're from even. They almost look a bit chafer-like in ways, but the wing structure is all wrong for chafers. But it's the most magnificent color. They've got that kind of orange that bleeds into a more reddish coloration on the back, and that contrasted against the bright green of these little leaves in this flooded section makes for a very pretty picture in many ways. This little pan is obviously drying out pretty quickly at the moment. It's not got a lot of water left in it, but the vegetation is still growing really nicely because of the amount of water that is here. And obviously these beetles are finding some semblance of food within this, or shelter. I don't know which one it is. I don't think that they're aquatic in any way, because they're sitting all over the stems and leaves. Getting moisture off of that leaf. See little water droplets around it. I honestly have no clue what these guys are. I don't even think I've ever seen this in an insect book before. See, the abdomen is also bright red on them as well. That's very, very cool. I love the fact that we can go out and see something new in the bush. It's why no one can ever know everything. There's always something interesting that makes an appearance. And in this case, it's a little insect that's arrived here, obviously from nowhere. I mean, these are not insects I've ever seen here, and we've done a lot of walking around this property and looking at insects, and I don't think I've ever seen this insect on the show before. I might be wrong, maybe one of the other presenters has had one of these guys before, but for me, it will be the first time that we've seen them. I'm trying to see if I can just narrow down the family just based off the structure. I honestly have no clue. There's one little leaflet to the left of this one. So if you go slightly to the left, it's going to be tricky to explain this. But just go a little bit more to the left for me, Morgan. Okay, and then in there somewhere, there's one that's got like 5 or 6 of them on it. Trying to see them now with my own eyes again to explain to Morgan where to go. It's definitely left of that one. Okay, got to go up a little bit, Morgan. Let's go up a little. So wait, where's that other one? Okay, there to the right. It's that little horizontal, well, that 45-degree angle stem on the right side of the frame. And then, yeah, there we go. And then straight in from there. You'll see a whole bunch of them kind of down the stalk or the stem of this little plant. Yeah, straight in. You're on the money. There we go. Just to the right a little bit to get them centered. That's them there. So you see there's quite a congregation of them here. But the color is absolutely amazing. I just like how much it contrasts against this bright, bright green. Very, very pretty. Seems like everybody's a bit dumbfounded by what these actually are. They're like almost like a cross between an assassin and a chafer. I have absolutely no clue what they are. I'll try and see if I can find them today. Lots of little mysteries of late between Trisha's little pods, which I'm sure are from one of the moths. She showed me one of them that she kind of broke open, and it looks like an old moth of some sort. But I mean, these guys too, I honestly don't know who they are or what they are. Aside from them though, if Morgan comes out a little bit, you'll see how pretty this little section is with the green and the little bit of water. Obviously the water itself looks terrible, but there's lots of texture and beauty and vibrance in this little place. Huge amounts of leaves and things going on. All right, we're going to carry on. We're going to see what else we can find. In the meantime, let's send you to Tswalu Kalahari and see how Mo is getting on.
So yeah, guys, we've given up on trying to wait for that aardwolf. I think what we'll do is we'll come back maybe tomorrow morning or the day after that and go from the other side. It's a little bit more open from that side, from the western side of the burrow, and see if it's not still lying outside and trying to get a little bit of heat in before the burrow opens up. But just very cool. Have a look. This is now a different group of meerkats. Also a wild group. You can see they are now a little bit more active, a bit of allo grooming going on there and so on, but very cool. We'll show you now. There's one sitting right at the top of that raisin bush, being on sentry duty. It always amazes me to see how high they can climb if they need to or they want to. And depending on the area, you'll find certain groups having a habit of getting up into the bushes. Others, if there's not a lot of grass coverage and they don't need to find a vantage point, you'll find them just standing on the ground and looking out for danger. You can see the little pups there, all having a look at us, trying to see what we are. This group is not necessarily very used to the vehicles, or to people for that matter. Because of that, they'll pay very close attention to what we are doing and in which direction we are moving or not moving. But yeah, just to reiterate the fact that it is getting cooler now in the morning. You can see now, it's already almost 9 o'clock and these guys are still being very lazy to start foraging. The pups you can see is playing and obviously the sentry at the top of the tree, that he's doing his job. Seems like he wants to climb down now. They're quite elegant when they climb up. The climbing down part, not so much. They most of the time end up jumping out of the bush and then doing a bit of a belly flop. But to come back to the activity, there he goes. Let's just see how gracefully he can do it. All right, well, that wasn't too bad. But for them to still be sunning themselves now and heating up before they start foraging, it just shows you that the temperatures have definitely changed in the mornings. I do think we are going to freeze this winter. It's not even close to winter yet, and I'm already shaking when I'm driving in the morning. So when it gets to proper winter and we go into the negative column of the temperature bar, I think it's going to be quite low this year. Going to look like little Eskimos when we drive around, or the little Michelin man. Just layers and layers and layers. Shame, and these guys can't even put on a jacket. They have to grow a thicker coat and change their activities during the day to be out and about during the warmer parts. So, as you can imagine, not only the meerkats, but a lot of the smaller animals, even things like steenbok, start making use of burrow systems during the winter to get away from the cold, because of the fact that they can't really put extra layers on. For them, it's an absolute necessity. And out here in the Kalahari, that's also why we have a lot of burrow-dwelling animals. So, during summertime, you'll find them using the burrow systems again to hide from the heat, because we've got both extremes here. We've got the very hot summers and the super cold winters. So it's got a dual purpose, but also for protection against their natural enemies, predators and so on. Tomato, yes, absolutely we will. Not quite now yet. We've already seen the aardwolf and the Battered Foxes and so on this morning. So that is that's already showing signs of the nocturnal animals becoming a little bit more active during the early mornings. Late afternoon, I don't think so yet, because it's cooling down, but it's not super cold. So I think you'll find that just after sunset, those guys will start moving. But when we come to things like aardvark and pangolins, we are waiting for the first proper cold snap to come through, that first cold front during the winter. As soon as we've got a period, a very cold period for longer than, I want to say, 2-3 days, that's when you'll find them making the decision to start getting active during the daytime. And then with a aardvark, you'll find them typically a little bit more active during the early mornings and late afternoons. Pangolins, again, a little bit more during the middle of the day, so coming out only at like 9 o'clock, maybe 10, and foraging throughout the middle of the day, and then popping down again into a burrow just before sunset, or depending on how well they forage, it could even be around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon that they get back into the burrow system. So yes, to answer your question, absolutely, and we're very excited about it. Winter time is definitely a special time. Porno, so meerkats are, it is a signature species to the Kalahari, but, just because it is so beautiful to see them out here, it's a little bit easier also because the grass is not necessarily always so long and so on, and it's easier for them to burrow. But you don't only find them in the Kalahari. I've seen meerkats in places like the Pilanesberg, which is more savanna-like. So they're not only indigenous to the Kalahari. If you go up to the Namib Desert, which is also not Kalahari anymore, you'll find on the edges of the Namib Desert, where it's semi-desert environment, there you'll find them as well. So it's not particularly a Kalahari animal, even though they thrive in these conditions, slightly drier. Because they're burrowing, they don't necessarily want too much rain throughout the year, purely because of the fact that the burrows might flood, and there's a lot of animals a lot of the pups or so on that will drown then. So for that particular reason, the sandy conditions is definitely good for them for digging, for foraging, as far as the insects are concerned. And then also it's just ideal for them. They love the Kalahari, but it is not a case of them only being out here. I'm going to lie to you if I tell you exactly where you'll find meerkats every time. So throughout South Africa now. But Jade, so when this insect activity goes down during winter time, you do find them having a bit more of a tough time finding food. Luckily, they can, like we said earlier, they can dig to get to the insects. So a lot of your worm species and so on, or larvas of the beetles when they're in their larval stage, will be underground at that time, so they'll find them. But you'll find that predominantly speaking, during winter time, their diet shifts very much to more of a termite-based diet. Obviously still foraging on whatever else they can find as far as insects are concerned, but the percentage of termites that they feed on during wintertime is much higher than the percentage that you'll find them feeding on during summertime when life is easy. So they do have a bit more of a, well, I want to say almost a longer day as far as foraging is concerned in front of them when it is winter. But it's not a case where they have to migrate to a different territory or so just because there's no more insects.
Well, we're here at Vuyatela Dam, and there's some hippos just enjoying themselves in the water. It's a little bit chilly today, and it really hasn't picked up too much in temperature since we started the drive. And since we started the drive, it was, what, 15 or 16 degrees Celsius and 61 degrees Fahrenheit. It feels pretty much the same. We might get some rain later on. Now for the hippos, that won't matter at all. They're always up for a bit of moisture, whether it's from the rain or whether it's from the dam. You'll always find them near water because they are amphibious. And when it is raining, it allows them to move around a little bit more. So sometimes they might want to move from this dam to a different dam. And when it's raining, it allows them to do that much better than when it's hot, because then they actually have a bit of moisture on their skin and it's not cracking and breaking as they move. Because yes, it does do that. It desiccates or dehydrates it very easily. It almost looks like one very long hippo, but we can see there's two heads. Very peaceful here at the dam. Can you hear just how peaceful? Very, very quiet. I suppose it's starting to turn a degree or two warmer. At least I don't have to sit on my hands. Do we have a heron on the far end there? Yep. Like a small speck of a heron. Where are... Oh, there we go. Hi, Grad Duck. You'd like to know if crocodiles completely avoid hippos and their calves? I mean, they try to. They both sort of avoid each other, considering that they... There we go, left off screen. Hippos and crocs try to avoid each other because they both need the water and fresh water to be able to survive. It's basically they have to have it. It's necessary. So they do their best to be good neighbors. However, conflict does ensue. But you will see them together like at Chitwa Dam. There's crocs and there's hippos. And they just try to do their best to avoid each other. Nobody really wants to get hurt. A crocodile can be chomped in half by a hippo and vice versa. So they tend to avoid each other. However, most of the time when there is a problem, it's when there's some prey that has made its way into the water. See, hippos don't... hippos are kind of... They appreciate the peace and quiet and having their territory in the water, and they don't appreciate it being disturbed by flailing around animals that jump in or crocs attacking the animals that jump in. So you might find that hippos will go and attack crocodiles, especially if crocodiles have attacked a prey item, because there's so much kind of noise and thrashing that it irritates the hippos. Hippos can be quite temperamental, but most of the time they try to avoid each other, like good neighbors that don't like each other but are still good. Just avoid. Our heron is playing statue with us. Grey heron. Oh, there we go. Finally some movement. Hi, Siobhan. You'd like to know what it is that we see swimming around just under the surface of the water. There's a couple things. So there's terrapins that would be swimming along, and you'd be able to tell it's a terrapin by like a tiny head that moves around. But what we're also seeing are tiny little insects, like water beetles. Can you see those? I'm not sure exactly what they are, but to me they look like water beetles. That's what you're seeing, that's creating the V kind of formation as they swim about. But they're actually on the surface of the water. Oh look, baby hippo has appeared. Is it baby hippo or is it the other hippo just behind? No, it's baby hippo. You are small hippo. Very sweet. Around the dams at Torchwood Dam, we saw, well, we're talking about algal blooms here. In Treehouse Dam, there's a lot of algae around. I wouldn't call it a bloom just yet. It's not, if it gets much worse than it is, then it would probably become toxic. But there's a red algal bloom in Torchwood, at the Torchwood Dam. That's not very healthy. So let's see what happens over the course of our stints. Around the edges here, it's not too bad at all, though. Domino, you'd like to know why hippo and crocodile skin is so different, but they both spend so much time in the water. That is a great question, and it has a lot to do with their lineages. Crocodiles, or crocodilians, come from a lineage of ancient reptiles. Now, the crocodiles that we see today and know today are not 80 million years old. They've gone through lots of evolution to get where they are. But their ancestry is very old, so the crocodilian line is very old. Hippos, they have evolved from land-dwelling mammals, and their ancestry also includes cetaceans. So those are animals like whales and dolphins, porpoises. Those are cetaceans. So they have two very, very different lineages, and then they both went to the water. So evolution has acted on them before they arrived into the water, as opposed to them both being in the water and then evolution acting on them after that. Do you understand what I mean? So a hippo and a crocodile don't share a recent common ancestor. Not at all, not in the least. They're in completely different groups. One is a reptile, one is a mammal. So their last common ancestor would have been many billions of years ago. In fact, probably the last time that you and I shared a common ancestor with a reptile, that would have been when they shared the last common ancestor. So their lines are completely different. And evolution acts on something when it needs to change to better something. So if both their skins in the water are completely adapted and are fine for what their purpose is, it's not going to change. So a reptile skin that is scaly, that is rough and hard, is very good for stopping desiccation, stopping dehydration. And a hippo skin is thick and it gets dehydrated very easily. So their skins are completely different, but in fact in the water it makes no difference to them. They're both fine. It's a very interesting question. Crocodile skin is very hardy. It's got things called osteoderms in it, which are bony protrusions with skin overlapping it. And the skin is also very hard and tough. I think it's always important. I always find it important to remind people that we always talk about survival of the fittest in terms of evolution, but in fact, survival of the fit is more accurate, and that it's those, if it works, then that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be the best option. Anyway, let's just enjoy ourselves with a couple moments of silence here at the dam, since I've been talking so much. Hi, Jacqueline. You'd like to know, when the dams dry up, how far could a hippo walk to find water? A hippo could walk hundreds of kilometers. It's examples of this is seen in KZN. I've told you about this before in St. Lucia. Hippos can move from one area to another area, and there have been records of hippos moving a very long distance, hundreds of kilometers, obviously not in one go, because St. Lucia is an estuary system, so it can always stop along the way as it moves, but records of hippos moving have been in the hundreds of kilometers. They will try their best to make sure that their skin does not get damaged. And that will include putting mud on them if they've got to travel distances, or if they've got calves, they'll even just spit on the calves to make sure that they all stay nice and moist. The skin of the hippo seems to be its Achilles heel.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi Sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Tswalu. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with Wild Earth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Tswalu's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. Wild Earth explorers, it's in your nature. For many years, Wild Earth has taken viewers from around the world to the Mara Triangle, a place of majestic beauty and abundant wildlife. But it wasn't always like this. Before 2001, it was infested with poachers. Illegal harvesting and hunting was rife. Now the situation couldn't be more different. The hard work and dedication of the Mara Conservancy has revolutionized this magical land. But now, the loss of revenue from tourism has created a grave crisis. The Mara Conservancy needs help if they are to continue protecting the reserve and supporting the local communities whose livelihood depend on its survival.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the Live Safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Alrighty guys, so we are slowly heading back to camp. It's been a beautiful morning. I mean, it's been so special to see all the jackals and the foxes and that aardwolf. Hopefully we'll be able to get it a little bit better for this afternoon, tomorrow morning. But for this afternoon, we're thinking about going over to the lion side. I'll have a chat to the guys. My radio has been turned down, so we haven't really heard what was going on with the other vehicles out. But trying to go and locate possibly on those lions, you know, like I said, I've been off for a while, more than a month that I haven't been on the property. So it would be great to see how the cubs are doing and how well the prides are doing and so on. Hopefully the guys have found them this morning and we can shoot straight there this afternoon. Spend some quality time with them and then tomorrow morning go and have a look if that aardwolf wants to come out. But yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful morning. Lots of meerkats and lots of the smaller predatory animals that we have here on Tswalu. Freddy, yes. So jackals definitely scavenge a bit more than they hunt. Obviously, it's dependent on the area. So possibly areas like the Kalahari, you'll find them hunting a tiny bit more than what you'd find them in Kruger doing, just because out here a lot of things are further away, you know, so we've got a lot more carcasses lying around when it comes to Kruger than we have out here in the Kalahari. So with that being the case, there's a very good possibility that they will hunt a little bit more. But, you know, with them being so small, there's also only a certain amount of things that they'll be able to hunt. So they will definitely, like we saw this morning with them being on that giraffe carcass, they will definitely scavenge predominantly. Also being canines, you'll find them feeding on plants or fruits also quite a bit. They're omnivorous. So you'll find them feeding on the gemsbok cucumbers and all of those things as well. To give you an idea, out here in the Kalahari, spotted hyenas specifically, if you go to Kruger, they scavenge quite a bit more than they hunt. But out here in the Kalahari, because of the lack of carcasses lying around, they have to hunt almost 90% of what they eat. So with that being the case, that just gives you a clear indication that out here, you'll have to fend for yourself a little bit more. You can't depend on something like a cheetah to make a kill for you every time or so. It's very much a case of if you don't know how to hunt, you are not going to make it. But yeah, guys, I mean, just look at how beautiful. I spoke about the golden color this morning, and now the sun is quite high, so you don't really get that effect. But as soon as the sun starts dropping or early morning, it is just spectacular at the moment. It's Always beautiful. And to have the Coronaberg in the property is also just very special. But it has unfortunately come to that point where we're going to have to say goodbye. So luckily it's only until this afternoon. So we're looking forward to having all of you join us again on the safari this afternoon. But for the time being, we're going to have to go back to camp. It is getting warm now, so the animals are also going to become less and less active. But it was just beautiful to have you with us. And we look forward to having all of you guys with us again this afternoon. All right, guys. See you this afternoon. Ciao, ciao.